and approve the fiscal year 2024 financial statements. This meeting is not a public hearing. Get that right. The board will not hear oral testimony, but will instead rely on materials created by the district staff and those submitted by stakeholders of the district. Before we move into the resolutions, I wanted to give you an update on the impact the ongoing lawsuits have had on the accrued interest that the district owes and the district's increasingly restricted ability to provide financing on future community infrastructure projects. So first, a quick overview of how the accrued interest occurs through the public purchase process. The purpose of the district is to expedite the construction of community infrastructure projects within the bounds of the district through debt financing. On the screen, you can see a high-level process for the financing of community infrastructure. The first step is that the developer builds out the infrastructure. This means they bear the expense themselves, the upfront expense. These projects must be bid out using a public bidding process. Once completed, the project is turned over for public ownership. That means all the projects are owned by a political subdivision of the state of Idaho. For example, many of the roadway and roundabouts projects are dedicated to ACHD. From there, the developer submits the invoices to the district for review and confirmation that the submitted expenses meet all the requirements for purchase according to Idaho State Code and the development agreement. After reviewing the invoices, the district staff submit the projects to the board with recommendations on final amounts and whether staff recommend approving the projects. Presuming the board approves the projects and that incremental revenue is available, the district is able to issue a general obligation bond. The proceeds from that bond are used to pay for the purchase of the projects with a purchase price going to the developer. One of the key concepts that I want to emphasize as we move to the next slide is the time that occurs between step 1 and step 4 can be several years. And during that time, according to the agreement the district has with the developer through the development agreement, interest ends up accruing to the developer during that time. That interest is set per the development agreement at the prime rate plus 2%, which is the orange line here. And you can see that this combined rate is now at 9.5%. And the increases are due to the federal Fed rate increases that have been used by the Federal Open Market Committee over the past few years to try and tamp down inflation. However, the rate at which the district can borrow is estimated here as the 10-year treasury plus about 1%. And that rate is substantially less, currently at about an estimate of 5.5%. So what this means to the district is that interest is accruing, which it will end up owing to the developer at around $1 million per year. And because the purpose of this interest accrual is to compensate the developer for the financing they put into place to build the community infrastructure, this means that these funds are presumably not available for use in future community infrastructure projects. And so we'll take a look at these dynamics. So there is a $50 million bond authorization that was put into place in 2010 by the voters to fund community infrastructure projects. And what you can see here is the allocation of how that has been used since the first lawsuit, which occurred against the October 2021 resolutions. During October, or those 2021 resolutions allowed for 5.68 million of projects to be purchased, and at the time about $1.4 million of accrued interest, leaving a little over 27 million available for future projects. However, since that time, the district has not been able to move forward with any bond issues, and you can see that although additional projects have been approved in February of 23, January of 24, later not listed here, but October of 2024, we've increased the projects approved to almost 14 million, but during that time, the interest has continued to accrue and we have not been able to pay it off. And so what this means is that The green slice, which is bond authorization available for future community infrastructure, is decreasing. And you can see that if rates hold in January of 26, we're going to have another about 1.2 million of accrued interest will be used up. And so we will have that much less available for future projects. So let me pause there and see if there are any questions that I can answer.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Helgren.
No questions here. I guess just one thing that I would note is the difference in how much that funding will go in years like 2021 versus today. There's been a lot of projects that we've seen increase in prices. And so not only are we losing that money on interest, but by not getting the projects done sooner, the cost of the projects going up is also increasing at the same time. So we kind of have two things going on here, both with the interest, but also with the delay. And that delay is significant. Projects that we were looking at in 2021 are costing a lot more today than they did back then. And so just to add that to some of the issues that we're seeing here is that it's not just the interest, which is significant, but that delay as well.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Board Member Halliburton, that's absolutely correct. So I presented all of this as a background to our next topic, but I know you need to introduce the resolution, so I'll pause here.
Thanks, David. So next we have resolution HR CID 1-2025. I think that's all I had to do. So please continue, David. Thank you.
All right. So Madam Chair, as I outlined on the update on the allocation of accrued interest, the ongoing litigation has significantly reduced the funds that could be used on public infrastructure within the district. And so whether that means that it's the public portions of the proposed Village Town Center or Alta Harris Park, the funds available have been both reduced and are not available to date. It's critical that the district is ready to provide financing as soon as possible to reinitiate the construction of community infrastructure that has thus far been rendered unavailable by the current litigation. To do so, we need to update the prior bond resolutions because they contain terms and structurings that no longer work. Before you today is a bond resolution that accomplishes those updates. The bond resolution reflects updated potential bonding capacity and provides flexibility for a bond to be issued when the time is appropriate. For example, the 2021 bond resolution limited a bond issuance to a maximum of 3.5% interest. As you saw today, that interest rate is actually 5.5%, meaning that a bond could not be issued under that prior resolution. So to recap, this bond resolution provides a much needed update in order to allow for a bond to be issued when the legal and market conditions allow for one. I did want to address that the Harris Ranch CID Taxpayers Association sent in 13 objections to this bond resolution within the last couple of days. Earlier this afternoon, the district staff sent the board the April 25th, 2023 ruling of the Ada County District Court that sided with the district on 16 issues raised by the association, many of which have been raised again in this letter. Additionally, shortly before this meeting, the district staff also sent some of the briefings for the Supreme Court trial of that's where the Taxpayers Association has raised those same 16 issues on appeal to the Idaho Supreme Court. So the district staff have reviewed these concerns and continue to be comfortable presenting and recommending that you approve this bond resolution. Additionally, you can see in the recitals of the bond resolution, all the whereas sections that clearly state the authority that this board has to approve a bond resolution under Idaho State Code. Additionally, this resolution creates the authorization to issue bonds. It does not actually yet issue the bonds. Instead, it positions the district to move quickly to provide financing when appropriate to do so. So those are my remarks for the bond resolution. I'll stand for any questions.
If no questions, we could take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of HR CID 1-2025.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Strasser.
I have a significant interest in this, of course, since my tax dollars are going towards the CID. And so I'm, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming up with a resolution that would reduce the time between the end of the court case and the bonds being issued. It's one of those things that actually does keep me up at night because it's a significant amount of my money that's going to, well, really nothing at some point. So I did some back of the napkin calculations and I figured out that every day we lose the same amount of money that I paid in taxes last year for the CID as a result of this this court case that the Taxpayers Association brought. And then I started thinking about, well, what does all the money that we've wasted thus far mean? And looking at the numbers, it seems like a reasonable estimate would be that it probably cost us about $5 million in interest. In 2022, they estimated that Alta Harris Park would cost 4.8 million. So that means that the Taxpayers Association has cost us the equivalent of a small park for our neighborhood, which is a significant chunk of change. In addition, over the last 5 years, the construction costs have gone up by, if you had $20 million back then, which is what we did, it'd only be worth about 14 million in equivalent construction costs nowadays. And that doesn't seem like it's going to change. So as a resident of the taxing district here, I estimate that this court case has cost my neighborhood between $5 and $10 million of stuff that we're no longer going to get, but that we do have to pay for. And so I can't do anything about that, of course, at this point, but I'm really happy that you guys are able to put the time in to find ways to reduce that, even by a day, because that's one taxpayer's entire annual tax burden for the CID that gets wasted every day. So even saving it by one day, I think, is a great step forward in limiting the damage the Taxpayers Association is doing to our neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I just want to relay that or reiterate that appreciation to the staff for continuing to find ways to help us move forward so that we can move fast when we can move fast. It is hard for me to be up here and to look at some of this stuff because I've been on city council since 2020. And when I was originally voted in, I didn't live in this district, but I was voted in at large. So I represented everywhere in the city. And the goal was to make sure that we were making the best decision for the entire city. And the things that this neighborhood wants today are the same things that they wanted when I was first elected 6 years ago. And so many of these projects could be done. We could have delivered on so many of those things. And so it is frustrating, but I do appreciate the flexibility of the work, all the stuff that you're doing to continue to put us in an opportunity where we can move forward. We can get these projects done as soon as possible, as soon as we're able to do so. So thank you for that continued hard work on this effort that, you know, is notably frustrating, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah, thanks so much, David. I just want to acknowledge, I think, the transparency that we're able to show the public. I think it's clear we are all frustrated with this process, and I want to be clear with the public on what these holdups are costing. And I think that the presentation was really clear on that. So I appreciate that work. If there is no further discussion, will the clerk please call the vote?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Strasser.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. So next up we have the service agreements. David, would you please continue on into that section?
Yes, Madam Chair, board members. The resolutions that the board will consider now are annual service agreements that provide essential services for the district. The district does not have its own staff and pays the city of Boise and external vendors to provide staffing and services for its operations. These services are paid primarily either via bond proceeds or the administrative levy for the district. The city of Boise provides finance, administration, engineering, and legal services. The vendors provide audit, financial advising, and engineering services. Additionally, as a partner with the district and the city, Barber Valley Development helps pay for services not otherwise covered by the administrative levy and bond proceeds. So those are my prepared remarks. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. So with that, I can take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of resolutions HRCID 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 2025.
Second.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Strasser.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, next is the approval of the fiscal year 2024 financial statements. We'll hear from Sabrina Meredith, the city controller, for that.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Sabrina Meredith. I'm the controller of the city, and through the agreement that you just saw, the city staff works for the CID or provides services for the CID, sorry. So I'm here to present the fiscal year 24 financial statements. Each year, the accounting team compiles the CID's financial statements. The CID has contracted with Eide Bailly for an annual external audit. The audit is a robust process that includes validating all balance sheet accounts, including review of the debt, a random sampling of transactions for proper accounting, and review of internal controls. These audit procedures validate the integrity of our financial statements. The fiscal year 24 audit was completed with no audit findings. I won't go over the financial statements because you do that regularly with your treasurer, but I stand for any questions, and I come to you today for approval and acceptance of the fiscal year 24 financial statements.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. But no issues keeps it pretty simple. Any questions for staff? Okay, with that, I can take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of HRCAD 8-2025.
Second.
Great. Any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, again, just thank you to staff for the hard work on all this stuff. So much of the work gets done and then it gets approved really quick. And there's not a lot of fanfare that goes with it, but I know how much goes into each one of those steps. And it definitely makes our jobs a lot easier up here. So I appreciate the hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that anytime there's an audit that doesn't show anything, it's because the staff has done really great work behind the scenes to keep things clean. So thanks for all your work and appreciate the due diligence there. If there's no further discussion, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Strasser.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
With that, I can take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned.